Live from Atlanta, Georgia, it's the Zach Ballinger Show, where we help you find your direction through purpose and passion. My name is Zach Ballinger. I am your host. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. We have a special guest. If you guys have any questions, feel free to enter those in the YouTube comment box. We'll get to them. Also, before any show, you guys can always email me, Zach@ZachBallinger.com. Ask me any questions. We'll make sure to get those to our guests at the end of the interview. Without further ado, Tammy, thank you so much for joining the show today.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, Tammy, I'm going to jump right in here and ask you about your career. So, what is your career title, your occupation? What do you do for your career?
Yes, I'm a happiness and meditation coach. I have a company called Happy Meditator. And I work with individual groups and companies to improve their happiness, resilience, and well-being.
So, for us people out there listening, they may say a happiness coach. What in the world is that? So can you explain exactly what that means? How in the world did you get into this type of line of work?
Yeah, let me tell you a little bit about my story and how I came up to be where I am today. Around 7 years ago, I woke up one day and my life started spinning, literally spinning. I started to develop all these physical symptoms that made me feel really uncomfortable with moving. So the only place I could feel a bit better was staying still. So just imagine someone very active, very productive, and suddenly everything around you feels very uncomfortable. And throughout a period, I would say, of almost a year, I started attending all sorts of consultations, doctors, evaluations, and they couldn't find really what was causing all these symptoms. And one of the things from my mental health background, as a profession before this, I was a clinical social worker. I knew that I wasn't depressed. But I was feeling very stressed, anxious, and feeling very down on the outcome of dealing with all these symptoms and not being able to have control of them. So I decided to turn into positive psychology, meditation, and yoga, because I knew those were proven ways to reduce stress and anxiety. And I thought, at least if I could reduce my stress and anxiety, I could maybe cope better with all the symptoms. And that's how I decided then to focus on training. So I started taking courses in positive psychology, which is basically the science of happiness. I started a deep and long path in meditation and yoga. So those three things became kind of my foundation for recovery. So even though I was not totally out of the symptoms, they make such a big impact in my life that I was able to recover again a sense of control of my life. And one of the things I realized in this process that I was very unhappy before I had all the symptoms. And now I suddenly discover a new path to happiness. And that path to happiness became all from those three pillars of positive psychology, meditation, and yoga. So I decided to then invest my future in helping people with the same ways I got help with these three pillars of well-being.
So part of the job function that you currently do, you mentioned the yoga and the meditation. So do you currently teach those classes, or is that an integrated a part of being a happy coach, or do you do that separately?
Yeah. When I work with people, it all depends on the needs of the client I'm working with. So sometimes you work on a one-to-one basis on a person that they really need to work on reducing stress and anxiety. And we can focus mostly on meditation first. And then once the person feels more centered, more clear where they want to head their life into the happiness path, then we work with adding techniques from positive psychology. If I'm working with groups, sometimes I get clients that say to me, I have this situation at work that I want to see if you can help us create a program for us to, let's say, build more mental resilience at work. or reduce stress and anxiety at the workplace. So then I cater for those needs. And I also have standing programs, like through my website, online programs that people can also just do when they want, let's say, to increase mental resilience, reduce stress and anxiety. They can just sign up for my online program. So I have diverse ways that I do the work.
And so what clients do you mainly work with? Do you mainly work with one-on-one individuals, or do you work with corporations or nonprofits? What's the
It's a
majority?
mix. It's really a mix. And this is one of the things that as a life coach or anyone that is looking into working in coaching, you have to diversify. And I have learned that at the beginning, when I started this path, I thought, well, I only want to work with people on a one-to-one basis. And then I realized that I really enjoy doing the group work a lot. So then I thought, well, I'm going to do both. And then I started getting companies contacting me and corporations with asking me with issues. And I thought, okay, I like that too. So it's important for me in my path has been to diversify, be flexible. So right now, I'll say that I'm a combination of three, and mostly I go with the flow. So depending on what people contact me for, I focus on trying to provide and be adaptable.
Now, how many years have you been a happiness coach? How long have you done this for?
Well, I started this path, I'll say for around 5 years. Before that, which is, I think, important to establish, I had a long career in clinical social work and mental health. So I had worked before in community clinics, psychiatric hospitals, and group therapy. So I was not totally new to the concept of working with people in sort of reducing stress, coping with depression and mental health problems. It's just my life coaching is just a different direction of how I'm doing that.
Gotcha. Makes sense. What are you passionate about? What do you love about your job? What gets you going?
Oh, wow. That's such a great question. I love so many things about my job. First of all, it's extremely rewarding. Oh my gosh. To be able to tell someone, these are the things that are proven that could help you be happier, more resilient. And people put those things into practice. And then they come back to you and say, thank you for helping me. Thank you for allowing me to reduce my stress, to sleep better, to be more productive. So that is extremely, extremely rewarding. The other thing I love, as I mentioned earlier, it's group work. I love teaching and creating programs that help people. So that is also something that I really enjoy of my career, is that I feel I'm working with my strengths. And obviously, I love meditation. I love doing yoga. So I also teach yoga at a yoga studio right now online. So I try to keep most of the things that I love are part of what I'm doing every day as a life coach. So it comes as a very rewarding career for me.
And you mentioned a couple of things that you do. You kind of do multiple things, but you do the meditation and yoga. So I'm sure this resonates with a lot of people out there that might be either interested in the mental health aspect of maybe getting a career to help people that way, or help people. I know a lot of people out there are interested in the yoga path. So I do like this multifaceted career that you have as a happiness coach. Now, on the flip side, we asked you something you're passionate about, but what's something that, that may be difficult about your job, or maybe something you don't like, or something that people need to know that you have to deal with?
Yeah, well, there's a bunch of things. First, you have to be able to work with difficult people. What others we know might label as difficult people, because you come across a lot of people in need that are very stressed, very frustrated with their lives, and that could be a challenge. So it is very good to have, for me, I already had that background in mental health to give me the tools to understand really well and not take things personal. So you need to have a sort of mentality shield here to work in this sort of coaching. So people are going to come with all their baggage, all their, life circumstances, and you have to do your best to help them from now. And you have to also be very clear with that about people, right? I'm not a therapist, I'm a life coach, so I'm going to help you to build what you want. But those issues from the past, we're not going to solve them here. This is not therapy. These are actionable coaching, what we're doing. So be very clear about that and have the tools to work with different people. The other thing is that because I do a lot of group work and public speaking, you have to be very comfortable with doing that. Everybody that wants to work on life coaching not necessarily enjoys public speaking. And I find that that's where a lot of clients and a lot of opportunities for me have come from doing public speaking. So you have to be comfortable with doing that and being put on the spot and dealing with, the anxieties of public speaking. And thirdly, I am very passionate about learning. And I think in this path of life coaching, you have to stay very active in always learning more and finding more ways to help people. And people love when you tell them about something new you read, a new study, new research. And that's also something that you need to add to your set of tools to stay in this profession. I say very active. So if you're the sort of person who's not into always learning or reading or looking at research, think about that is something really important that I consider in this path.
Every professional always says this. I say it too. We always say, what we get asked a lot, what our day looks like, and it's common sense. Every day is different, right? Mm-hmm. But if you had to walk us through a typical day, let's say we get Tammy up in bed out of the morning and she has to start work, and then by the time you go to bed at night, what does a typical day look like?
Yeah, I think because of the current situation we're living in right now with our global pandemic and all these things, I think my routine now, it's more settled than what it was before. I also, I'm a mother, so I have 2 kids that are in school right now. So part of me, my routine is very consistent because of me and also my kids. So I'll say every morning, the first thing I do is meditation. That is kind of the foundation for my happiness, for my resilience, and for everything I do. So I also, I'm a very active person. So I either run, hike, do yoga, or cycle. Or sometimes I'm trying to do strength training, but I'm not very consistent with it. So I always try to stay active on the move because that's another important pillar for happiness. Then I be sure my kids are settled into the remote learning, and then I move to looking at the things I didn't do yesterday that are still on my to-do list, focusing on what are the priorities for my work and personal things as well, juggle all that. And usually I try to leave the afternoons for family time, doing other things and arranging, whatever other odds and ends are around.
You mentioned a couple of things on the happiness spectrum. You mentioned meditation as well as physical activity. I'm sure you know that mental health is really a big issue in this country. Obviously, you're doing what you're doing, so you know that better than anybody. But let's say somebody's out there listening, they're like, I'm unhappy. Mm-hmm. What are some of the keys to being happy?
Okay. So there's many things that we could do to take control of our happiness that don't mean very complicated things. So the first thing I always say to people, think about how can you build more resilience. Look at strategies that help for mental resilience. Number one, it's always for me meditation. Meditation not only helps with the ability for you to cope with challenges and problem solving, is also helpful for stress reduction, brain health, heart health, you name it. There are so many components of our lives that we're in deficit that meditation can help someone. So start small. Start with a 5-minute simple practice every morning. Second, as I mentioned, moving is really important. And you can move no matter where your circumstances are. And even if you think that seems when you're depressed or low too hard, set a very simple goal that you can achieve. So maybe start with 3 minutes of a walk. So this is something really important when people want to start to do something with their lives. Start with short, small, achievable goals. Number third, I say to people, start with a gratitude journal. When our minds are focused on stress and anxiety or negativity, it's really hard to see the goodness we have in our lives. And a gratitude journal is something very simple that anyone can do. Anyone can get a notebook or write it on their phone and begin to find the things that are going well in your life and write them down. This is a practice that has been proven that actually helps our brain stay more in the sort of positive mode. Number 4, look at your sleep. A lot of the times people think about these big things to change their mental health and they don't look at their sleep. Sleep is one of the most important things we can do for our physical and our mental health. So figure out ways and techniques that you can do to improve your sleep. I actually created a free guide on my website of 4 simple steps that anyone can do to improve their sleep. It's called oh my gosh, I forgot, Sleep Better Technique. So if you go to my website, you can sign up. And this is something very simple, 4 steps that you can do. And 5th, you need to focus on your relationships. A lot of people have difficulties with relationships, whether are personal or at work, and try to figure out ways how to improve those. We are social human beings. We thrive when we're connected, when we feel love, when we're supported. And a key component on happiness is having strong, positive relationships.
Thank you for the tips. Very good. And we'll make sure to link your website in there for if people want to read more tips about the sleep. We're going to take you into a time machine now. We're going to move you back in the past. You're going to go back to elementary school. And you might be in the 3rd, 4th, 5th grade. Doesn't matter. Did you ever have a career that you dreamed of being?
Yes, I have it very clearly. As soon as you said this, oh, I love this question. I always wanted to be Wonder Woman since I was very little. And I think it was since I was very young, I always knew that I loved to help people that were in need, right? Because this is what all superheroes are. And through my life, I always knew that whatever path I picked, it had to be something that I actually actively help people get better. So I was obsessed with Wonder Woman, and I always remember that that was who I wanted to be. And I think in a way, with the things that I do, I consider I am still a Wonder Woman very deep inside.
I love that analogy because here's why. I encourage, I just wrote a new book this year, Don't Be a Zombie, How to Find Your Career, Your Love. And one of the chapters I try to take you back to the dreaming phase when you were a child. And, it may not line up perfectly, but this is a great example of where it did.
Yeah.
You said you want to be Wonder Woman, and that's cool, an action figure as a kid, but think about the skills, the traits, the abilities that Wonder Woman has. She's able to help people. And you said it yourself. And so what you're doing now, obviously, is helping a lot of people. So it's almost like your dream was always there. It's just you had to harvest that into a career. And that's kind of up to us to find that path, and you were able to do it. So I love the analogy. I think that's a great story.
Yeah.
So I did want to get to the questions, but one more question I did have to I know you're the happiness coach now. Is there what kind of education certifications,
Mhm.
credentials do you need to have to become this if someone wants to do it?
Well, to be honest with you, there's not a happiness coaching school in that sense. As I mentioned earlier, for my career, I link my education, my professional background in mental health and social work. I have studied positive psychology, which is the science of happiness, and I'm still doing courses actually right now because this is a very new science. So I'm actively still learning about it. And for the mindfulness aspect, I have done specific training on becoming a mindfulness and meditation teacher. And I also have a background as a yoga teacher. So I have done training in that field. So basically, I put all those things together and I created my own personal happiness and meditation school.
Great. Awesome. So the first question that comes in looks like from a student says, can I really be happy 100% of the time?
That's a great question. And the quick answer is no. When it comes to happiness, we tend to associate it with positive joy, being happy and jolly all the time. And happiness is a lot more than that. Happiness is about having more positive emotions than negative emotions. So as part of living, we every day experience negative emotions. But to stay happy, we need to have more positive emotions than negative emotions. And that's when coaching really helps, because a lot of the people that come to me feel that their life is more connected to negative emotions, like fear, anger, sadness, frustration, disappointment, feeling hopeless. So we need to create things in your life to connect more with positive emotions, so you stay more optimistic. But part of being optimistic is accepting that there's times that you're going to be low, that you're going to connect with negative emotions, but that is transitory. You know your way to reconnect back to positive emotions. And as I mentioned, joy is just one. If we think about happiness, serenity, hope, gratitude, compassion, love is a very important one. So whenever we're connecting with all those other positive emotions, we're also connecting with happiness.
And then the next question comes in. It looks like from a professional. They say, I've always dreamed of owning my own yoga studio and opening my own yoga business. Any tips for me to get started or begin that career path?
Well, I'm a yoga teacher, so I'm not, I don't own a studio. I'm just a teacher in a studio because I like to keep teaching yoga. I love with a very strong passion. I will recommend to the person that asked that question to get in touch with other yoga studios, that yoga studio owners, to kind of explore more that path. One thing that our current situation is making very challenging for yoga studios to stay afloat. And I know that from the personal experience of our studio, the studio I teach. And a good opportunity right now under the current situation is to promote, I will recommend an online yoga studio. So that could be maybe something that this person could explore and see if you can take on with that. And once we're out of this situation, maybe connect with more people to see if you can move into having a physical studio. But I think right now it's a great opportunity for anyone to try to begin a career as an online yoga studio owner.
Yeah, great advice. You might as well connect while you're out there and see. Or if you're in
Mhm.
a warm tropical climate area, let's say you're living in Arizona, maybe you could do a couple, or sit in on a class first. Get your feet wet by
Mhm.
teaching first
Mhm.
instead of just
Mhm.
going full blown into opening up a studio right away. So I like that advice as well. Next question that comes in, it says, typically when you work with clients, what hours do you typically work? Are you having to adjust to their schedule after work, or do you have your set hours that you work with your clients?
Usually with clients that I work, because I have diverse clients. I have clients that are women that are working from home. Mostly everybody's working from home now. And I adapt to their hours, but within my schedule. As I mentioned, I'm a mom, so usually the hours that I work are around my kids' schedule. So I work during the day and in the afternoons, and then I have commitments that I take on the evening. But right now, with our current situation, most of my job is focused online, which makes it really easy for me to do it from my home.
Gotcha. And so, just before we end, I do want to touch on, let's say someone's out there and either they're interested in learning more about maybe your services, or
Mhm.
maybe B, they've heard about the sleep, these tips that you talked about earlier, and they want to see these, or they want to follow you on a social media type forum. How can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, well, the easiest way is to go to my website, happymeditator.com. There you can have access to my blog. I work a lot on my blog, so I'm consistently posting on a weekly basis, 2 to 3 posts or around resilience, mental health, and happiness. I have a podcast as well called Happy Meditator. So you can reach me on any of the big platforms for podcasting. You can follow me on Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn under Happy Meditator. You will find me in all of those as well.
And we'll make sure to link these links in the video, especially with your website, since it's got everything.
Mhm.
We'll link that to all of our platforms for you guys out there that are listening that want to connect with Tammy. Tammy, we certainly really do appreciate this. This has been very interesting. I always enjoy interviewing for different professionals. We've had a live and engaged audience, and we really do appreciate your time. We know you're very busy, and like you said, you've got a lot of obligations and you're bouncing a lot of balls. So we do appreciate
Mhm.
you being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It has been great, and I look forward to watching the episode and connecting with your audience.
Yeah, thank you so much, and you take care and have a great day.
Thank you.